All righty, let's get right to it. Welcome in Jason Timpf. We've had him on a few times the last couple months. He works for Volume Sports, knows his Warriors, and here's where I'm going to start, Jason. So last week our boss took a vacation and he went to Hawaii. Then he came back and he had surgery on his knee, so he hasn't been in the office for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and we're clearly better. We're better without him when he doesn't show up. Are the Warriors better without Draymond Green?
First of all, it's good to hear from you guys again. I appreciate you having me back on the show.
What's up, Jay?
Plain and simple, I'm just going to say no.
Wait, about Draymond Green or about Matt Nahigian? Because we're better without him. We are better without him. Go ahead, man. Joke's over.
So they were 14 points better per 100 possessions this season with Draymond on the floor versus off. They were 11 points better per 100 possessions last year in the playoffs with Draymond on the floor versus off. There's no question that they are capable of playing a certain type of basketball without Draymond, and they're capable of winning games. But here's the thing. Draymond plays last night. I still think they win by 15 or 20. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And in Sacramento in the two losses, one of the most encouraging pieces of data that makes me feel confident that the Warriors still have a very good chance to win this series is that with Steph and Draymond on the floor, in 50 minutes, they were plus 13. Mm-hmm. The issue in this series has nothing to do with Draymond. Ironically, I think you saw a great example of one of the issues in this series in last night's game, which is just all of the players, mainly the perimeter players, needed to be much more engaged defensively and on the glass. Jordan Poole had a nightmare defensive performance in games 1 and 2. I was rewatching the game this morning, so incredibly active to start this game, sprinting back in transition to get into matchups, stunting at the basketball and helping his teammates, containing the basketball in his own matchup. Everybody on the team did so much better. And, sometimes we get stuck on schematics and we go, oh, what about this adjustment? What about that adjustment? And sometimes it's just, you got to play better. Like, Steve Kerr actually said this in his interview after the third quarter last night. I don't know if you guys caught this, but he's like, we knew what we needed to do. We needed to rebound and take care of the basketball. Like, sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's less about some sort of magic fix and more about everybody just has to do a better job. And in a situation that required a certain amount of desperation, every single Warriors guard brought it to a certain level that they hadn't in the first two games. And then Kevon Looney, obviously, super clutch performance from the center position with Draymond being out. But, I mean, we have this conversation a couple times a year over the last 3 or 4 years, but there's no question the Warriors are better with Draymond, and they're going to need him to win in Sacramento because they're going to need to get stops.
Yeah, no doubt, Jason. I'm telling my partner, man, I got to be honest, before the ball tipped last night, I was a bit worried and shocked that Sacramento looked like they had the younger legs. They were in Curry's space. They were in the Warriors' space. It was just hard offensively for the Warriors to just make a simple pass. You look at the turnovers. The Warriors had more turnovers. Jason, why wasn't that on exhibit? Why didn't we see that yesterday? The Kings didn't seem to be in the Warriors' space like they had the first two games.
I'm actually going to zag on you guys a little bit here. When I was rewatching this morning, I was like, wow, the Kings actually threw a good punch defensively. The Warriors couldn't make a shot in this game. They shot 40%. And I was actually thinking before the game, I'm like, man, they're going to need huge games out of Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson offensively. Mm-hmm. And really, up until Klay Thompson made a bunch of shots in crunch time, neither of those two guys could get anything going. The Kings actually brought a very good defensive effort in that game. The Warriors just went another level above that. And then this is why when I'm looking at a playoff series, especially in the early part of the series, when you get to the end, the wins are what matters, right? Like if you have 3 losses in a series, you literally can't afford to learn a lesson by losing. But early in the series, I'm always paying attention to when we get to the end of this series, can this team get stops? Can this team get baskets? And the reality is the Kings will never have an answer for Steph Curry because regardless of their defensive effort last night, he ended up getting his 36 or whatever. Even in the 2 games in Sacramento, Steph was the rare bright spot. He was the one guy that was getting wherever he needed to get. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, the Warriors have started to unlock something, and I noticed this in Game 2, because I actually thought the Warriors were going to win Game 2 if Draymond did not get ejected. And in that game, I noticed that with Gary Payton and Andrew Wiggins on the floor, they were doing a really nice job of containing De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. In fact, the most successful lineup the Warriors have used in this entire series, by plus-minus, is Steph and Clay with Gary Payton, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green. They have the ability in the later games of this series to get stops in a way that Sacramento can't, and that's a huge part of why I actually feel pretty confident, and I'm not surprised at all that the Warriors are a favorite in Vegas this morning to win the series.
Jason Timpf joining us from Volume Sports. He covers the NBA. Let me ask you about Sabonis, who's struggled a little bit in this series. Do they need to get him going? What do you see the Warriors doing to him that's definitely negated him in at least 2 of the 3 games?
Well, in the playoffs, you're allowed to match physicality in a way you can't elsewhere. And it's funny because you'll see the true physical specimens really start to have success. Like, look at how good Kawhi Leonard has been up before his injury at just getting to his spots. Look at how good LeBron James has been, despite being a little bit out of rhythm, getting to where he needs to get on the floor and feeling comfortable in the post and things along those lines. Domantas Sabonis plays an extremely physical brand of basketball, but he's not actually that much bigger or stronger than the guys he's going against at his position. And, you could see him trying to bully Kevon Looney to certain spots around the rim or even around the smaller guards when they're kind of swarming him. And he's just not actually dislodging people from their position. And I think that's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned about the playoffs over the last couple of years is like true physical advantages over your peers at your position go so much further in this stage. That's ironically one of the things that makes Steph such a unique player in NBA history. He's like the only guy at his position who usually is giving up physical advantages and consistently wins those battles. But he's the exception that proves the rule. Too often we've seen that specific type of player run into playoff problems. Kevin Love is another great example. Kevin Love in the regular season used to have a ton of success as just this big, strong 4 that could rebound and kind of work in the post. And then every year he'd run into Thaddeus Young and not be able to post him up, or just completely get his lunch eaten by Draymond Green. You know what I mean? Like there's another level of physicality, and if you don't have true advantages, you're not going to succeed.
Jason, I went to bed, and before I went to bed, I got this stat that Kevon Looney led the NBA playoffs last year, and I didn't know this, in offensive rebounding. Last night, he gets 20 rebounds in total. He's surrounded by future Hall of Famers. But, Jason, do you think this dude is one of the most underrated players in the league? I mean, he's making $7 million, but damn, every time they need a rebound or another shot after a missed, 3, there he is. Like, where's this Kevon Looney story going?
Well, I do think in general rebounding has become a super underrated factor in the playoffs. Actually, Charles Barkley was talking about this on TNT the other night. But I think of it from a math perspective. So you're trying to win this battle of half-court points per possession, right? And then you're trying to keep the game in the half court as much as possible for the sake of your defense, right? And usually it's a small gap. Like, one team will be getting about 95 points per 100 half-court possessions, and the other team will be getting about 93 points per 100 half-court possessions. And so little things like offensive rebounds, taking care of the basketball, those fluctuate the number of possessions. So sometimes it's less about, we're getting 2 more points per 100 possessions, and more about, we just got 10 more possessions than you. You know what I mean? And how that can fluctuate the math. And so Kevon Looney just going out and grabbing 6 offensive rebounds and a half in a game where neither team can score. But like literally both teams were struggling so badly to put the ball in the basket, but Kevon Looney just gave them more cracks at it. It's like that play right before the half. Steph misses a 3, but Kevon Looney keeps it alive, gets it back out to Steph. He makes the 3. The Kings got a stop. They did what they needed to do on that possession, and then the Warriors got an additional possession about it. And most importantly, most often offensive rebound situations are chaotic. Guys are usually not matched up. Some guys go to box out, but some guys, especially perimeter players, are taught by their coaching staff to crack down and crash from the perimeter to help grab contested rebounds. So if somebody gets an offensive rebound, that dude who's crashing is now away from his matchup. And that's what that's why so many offensive rebounds end up leading to wide open threes, because guys just aren't matched up on the perimeter anymore. But as far as why he makes so little money, I think it's just a general lack of valuation for that type of player. But I do think the smart teams, the smart GMs around the league do value that type of player significantly and make sure that they have that type of guy on their roster.
Jason, thank you so much as always
Appreciate
for joining us. You break it down extremely well, man. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Yes, sir. Jason Timpf, Volume Sports.